created my own little algorithms to do one thing or another, like disease states, a mortality algorithm. And
I think you will have a whole levels of robotics, that humanoid robots or non-humanoid robots, whatever the case is.
But the one that I really gravitated towards was Alteryx. Low code, no code, business intelligence stuff, data science, machine learning, things like that.
Audio, the text, and then there's big metaverse stuff. Everybody knows the metaverse.
Another week of AI.
So just to give the audience a little bit more background context about me. So I've been working in the AI space at a large technology company for about the last 6 years. And half of my tenure there, I've been working specifically in data centers. So building out data centers, installing H100 chips, and doing AI. I think one of the biggest challenge we have today is, when people think AI, they just think software. And kind of in my world is kind of saying like, how do you move up the stack, right? So you have the actual physical hardware. Then on the hardware, you have some type of software that sits on top. And then whatever sits on top of the software is where you truly start to see like the AI agents, the LLMs, all the intricacies of what we call AI. But if we move down the stack to the actual base of it, it all starts with infrastructure. So to any veteran that's out there, any individuals that's looking to move in the space, I truly feel there's a huge opportunity what's currently happening in the market right now. And so if we look at a data center, right, because I think that's most people be like, well, where does all of this hardware sit, right? So where do these AI agents that, live in this weird ether that, we never see, we never touch outside of a computer screen, like where is all of that happening? All that happens at a data center. So you have different activities that can happen. You have on-prem. Some companies have their own physical infrastructure physically on their site. And then you have cloud. So the space I worked in is in the cloud space. So cloud GPUs. And what happens at a data center is essentially this. I like to say from dirt to GPU. When you're building out the data center, things you have to consider is power and cooling. These machines run extremely hot. So think like your car, right? You're never going to take your car to the Sahara Desert, take all the coolant out the engine and just run it as hard as you can. The engine is going to die almost instantly. So with these GPUs that you have in data centers, you have to have some type of cooling mechanism to take the heat off of the chipset and kind of recycle it through the machine. A lot of data centers that we're seeing in today are moving to more eco-friendly, where they're actually repurposing a lot of the heat that comes off the GPU chipset. So there are systems whereby you can capture that heat and actually repurpose it within the building itself. So I worked at a data center in Canada where they were actually repurposing some of that heat back into the building that were coming off of the GPU chipsets. And then within the actual data center itself, you also have power, right? So think of your home. Your home is connected to an electricity grid. That electricity grid is connected to like a major substation that's kind of providing your community power. So think of that exact same concept at a data center. When the power comes into the data center, it goes through this mythical transformer that helps kind of convert the power down to think like clean energy so it can actually go to the GPU racks. When it gets to the GPU racks, all that power is then broken up to each of the different servers, right? So on the servers, you have what's called rear door heat exchangers. I know that sounds like a big fancy word. It's just a big word to say a big air condition. So when you have all this power going in, you have all this heat being generated, you have to have a way to kind of pull off that heat off of the chipsets. So you have what's called a rear door heat exchange. And it looks exactly like it sounds. There's a big door that has a bunch of cooling fans, and you put it on the back of a rack where all your different servers or your physical infrastructure sits on. And that helps also pull some of the air out or some of the hot air out. So there's two type of chipsets that you have. You have liquid cooled, which basically means you have this special type of water that passes through the machines to help keep the chips cool. And you have air cooled. Air cooled essentially means that the room itself is at a cold temperature. And it's basically using like a big air condition to help keep all the machines cool and running. Within that, you have your CPUs, which if you know even the basics about computers, you have your processing units that sits on the actual chips. You also have like storage. So if you think about your phone, you have all your photos saved somewhere. So each of these different servers have storage. They have CPUs. They have the GPUs that sit on there, which makes the physical infrastructure itself. Now, once you have the physical infrastructure, you have to connect it all, right? So how do you best talk to each other? There's cables, thousands and thousands of cables in a data center. So you can have all these isolated components, but if they can't talk to each other, it does it no good. So we have thousands of cables that are going back and forth. Think like spaghetti noodles that are connecting each of these machines together so that they can speak one language. Now, we talked about moving up and down the stack. So once you have the physical infrastructure, you have the software that sits on top of it. And then you have the internet that kind of comes into it to say, hey, how do you access Netflix, right? You got to have the internet. So if you want to go download a movie, you're connecting to a data center somewhere in the world that is processing that information so that you can have kind of access to it. So I know I was kind of hodgepodge, kind of like all over the place, trying to give you like everything I know of a data dump in like 65 seconds, but I'm happy to peel the onion in any of those directions.